Good evening and welcome to the Let's Talk Destiny talk show. As you know, this month we have been speaking with fathers who shared their experience with fatherhood. And today we have a young man with us who is, I'm very proud to say, is my oldest son. And due to circumstances, Byron, you have not been able to be active in your son's lives as you would desire to. Can you tell me? I know that there are a lot of fathers who are listening, and there are fathers who are in there where you are who have not been able to be involved in their children's lives, and some could care less, but then there are those that I honestly believe are impacted by being away from their children because they love them. Can you just tell us briefly how it has impacted you to be away from your sons?
Uh, it's devastating. Uh, we talking about my seeds here, and especially the more conscious that a man becomes, the more he wants to pass on that consciousness to his sons. But understanding that they're gonna have these same trials and tribulations that I had to, but because I went through it and I made it out with the proper consciousness, then I can show them the way to avoid certain pitfalls set up in time for them to fall. So not being able to really do that as I was like, not being able to hug them, not being able to tuck them in at night, not being able to just look them in their eyes whenever I choose to and say, son, I love you, I got you. That's devastating. It's
Yeah,
devastating.
absolutely. Now, your father died when you were 10 months old. And so you did not have the opportunity to have him in your life and to learn from him. You had a grandfather who acted as a father for you, but you did not have your biological father around. How has his, or how did his absence affect your childhood, do you think?
Well, as we talked before, not having him around, and when I say not having him around, I'm not even speaking of so much as physically, but even not being able to receive his guidance, whether it's on a piece of paper or whether it's just his voice.
Right,
Of course, again, that's taking away, the guidance and the light, the path that I had to walk.
right,
So it definitely impacted it, you know, in a way of there being a void there.
yes,
That again, it's a balance. You know, that mom son relationship is always gonna be the most powerful pull. But the other half of that is that masculine energy, and that's needed.
right.
So, it definitely had a left a void in my life.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that because I hear people say a lot of times that you can't miss what you've never had. And I disagree with that because just because you don't have it doesn't mean you don't need it. And especially when it comes to parenting. Um, there are a lot of us, now not us, but there are a lot of people in our community who have grown up without their father in their life and being active and involved in their life. And then there are those that their fathers are alive and capable of being in their lives, but for whatever reason, they're not. And it has an impact whether you knew that person or not. I think though you were 10 months old when your father died, as you got older, especially in your early teens or right before you became a teenager, I think that it was important that you had a man, your father in your life, and there was no one there at the time. So I think it makes a big difference. And I'm glad you said that because I do believe that it matters that you have both parents in your life. So knowing your character and your personality the way that I do, you have been away on a 15-year journey as of right now. And I know for sure that you have um, become a father figure to many young men that you've come in touch with over these past 15 years. Do you see yourself as having fathered some young men over these past 15 years?
Well, over the past 15 years, and I'ma just go off of, how the young men carry it with me in here, uh, and the words that come out of their mouth.
Right.
They literally told me. I've had young men, I've had men that were older than me look me dead in my eyes with tears falling down their face and tell me that I'm a father figure for them.
Yes.
Because it's not a we talking about these kind of matters. One thing that has to be understood is a real man is secure in his manhood. So a real man has no problem looking at another man who is giving them the type of guidance, the type of love and nurturing that he's never received before. He has no problem looking at him and saying, you're like a father to me, and I appreciate you and I love you. So
Right.
there have been literally hundreds of men that come through these crits and concrete universities that we use. They said, you like a father figure. But I like to address, you said a lot of people say you can't miss something that you never had. And quite honestly and frankly, a lot of these sisters that say that they need to quit repeating this foolish talk because it's coming from a serious place of ignorance. And it's also coming from a place of lack of understanding. Also a lack of emotion for the son that you're saying. Oh, you basically saying, oh, don't you're gonna be all right. You don't need no father. Forget the fact that you're gonna have to grow up to be a man one day.
Right.
You don't need a man to guide you. And that's never been our culture. If you check like before the 50s and the 60s, our family units were strong. Our family structure was cohesive. And it bled from the houses out into the community as a whole. We understood that we were all together, we were all one in this struggle together. But through the attacks of, the drugs being flooded into the neighborhoods, and you had so-called affirmative action movements and all of that, where you were taking a lot of parents out of the house, and they were chasing careers, or these things led to a breakdown in the family structure. And by no means am I saying something is wrong with chasing a career, but I'm saying we have to look at the design of why things happen at certain times.
Right.
So I would implore all sisters to never tell your son, that you don't need your father or you're no good like your father, because these vibrations that you're speaking, you're planting a seed into soil, and it has to grow one day. So you don't want to have to deal with a monster of your own creation.
Awesome. That's very powerful and very true. It's very profound. And I hope that someone who hears this video will absolutely take that into their spirit and their mind and use that. Now, I was just thinking about you were all right. You were out and able to see the birth of one of your sons. Describe for me the feeling of watching your son being born.
Well, I thought it was that I had reached the highest heights of the most wonderful thing in the world when I used to just, feel on his mother's stomach while he kicked or, moving around. I thought that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But to literally watch him come out of her womb, and it's it's almost hard to really put it into words,
Mm-hmm.
the type of emotion and love and energy that's released at the time that your child comes out of the womb into this physical existence.
Yes.
I had tears in my eyes. I was smiling ear to ear. I couldn't take my eyes off of the whole process. I didn't want nobody touching them. It's like it's two of the most powerful things that can happen in life. When a person dies, when a person, when your person's child is violently snatched from this earth, it shakes a parent to the core.
Right.
And it's the flip side of that when your child comes into this existence. So it's just like a spiritual, supernatural experience that, I'm so glad that I got to experience.
Powerful, powerful. That's awesome. Now, let me ask you this question. What is, and I know as we have already discussed that you are not able to interact with your sons on a daily basis and to see them or talk with them or whatever, but what are, in your own words, I want you to explain to me what legacy you would like to leave here for your sons, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. What are the lessons that you want them to learn, and what is the legacy that you want to leave for them?
The legacy that I want to leave for my sons is first and foremost, it is imperative that and I'm not even just speaking about now my biological sons. I'm speaking about all of my sons that are part of, our people.
Yes.
It is imperative that we truly know who we are as a people and where we fit into the world history, where we fit into international law, why we go through the things that we go through on the four corners of this planet. It is imperative that all fathers leave that legacy of showing our sons who we are, so we can quit acting other than what we are.
Yes.
So we can stop acting out the ideas that have been programmed inside of us and placed upon us when everything else that we truly are was snatched out. So the corporate slavery that we go through, the stresses and struggles of everyday life, we as a people, we have taken it because we dealt with it so long. But that's not normal. That's not what's supposed to be happening. And it's happening for a reason. And that reason is due to because we don't know who we are. So the minute we continuously pass on generation after generation who we really are, then we can take back the birthrights that were stolen from us.
Yes.
And by doing that, we won't have to beg and borrow. We we won't be the tail. We will become the head again. And the world as a whole will have to respect and honor us for who and what we are. Because, until that type of legacy is passed on of dignity and honor and who we truly are, then nothing else really even matters. I don't want to pass on just the legacy of leaving them millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Or, your daddy he went hard. Your daddy did this, he did that. None of that is going to deal with the real problems that they're going to have to deal with. So
Yeah.
my legacy for them is true knowledge of self, taking back our birthrights, and building and building and building on that for every generation.
Powerful, powerful. I like that. Yeah, that's powerful. All right, I have one more question for you, and then I'm gonna let you go. As you know, I have an organization called A Mother's Cry, and we are not just, about crying tears necessarily, but we're about learning to use our voice to provide a forum where mothers can use their voices and so on. However, I want to ask you as a father and as a male, um, especially a Black male, what is one thing that we as mothers should do or could do to make sure that our children bond with their fathers?
One thing that definitely, and I'm sure many, many brothers can relate to this. One thing that needs to happen is a lot of our sisters, they have to stop blaming, the father for, well, what this is what you're the reason we're not together, and I'm mad with you, or I feel some kind of way, or I moved on with some other male, and you gotta stop using all of those excuses for the reason why you're removing this child's father from his life.
Yes.
Because regardless to whatever happens, again, it's a positive, it's a negative, it's a masculine, it's a feminine. This law of polarity, this law of polarity, of duality, is a must. So the same as the mother is in the child's life, the father needs to be there. So we just need for brothers and sisters to start respecting each other more. We need for brothers and sisters to be more mature and stop acting like children when dealing with one another because somebody's feelings got hurt. So we talking about a child is involved, and we gotta grow up. We gotta start doing things, in the proper manner like royalty. We can't scream we kings and queens, but we acting like peons and peasants. So we gotta start having more understanding and working with one another to bring up this child. Because he or she is gonna need both sides.
Yes, yes.
And we should never let anybody stand in the way of a child having his father in his life. I know a lot of insecure guys out there, they end up getting with these sisters that have children by other men. And due to their insecurity, a lot of them will sometimes stand in the way and put pressure on the female to be like, well, why do we need him? I'm here. But the fact is, you're not his father. So if you have a father that's trying to really be in his child's life, sisters, we need for you to stand up, and again, just have respect for one another, love for one another, remove the fear, remove the doubt, and do everything that you can to let that father be in his child's life.
Awesome. And as we all know that sometimes circumstances dictate that we have to make adjustments and we have to make changes. But whatever the changes that need to be, they just need to be done so that these children can know their fathers, if the father wants to be in their life. So I thank you so much, Byron, for talking with me today and for sharing your father's heart, because I know for a fact that you love your children, and one of your greatest desires is to be home with them very soon. And we're definitely praying for that to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go now.
Absolutely.
Do you have something else you want to say?
And I just thank you for, I love what you're doing. You already know I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest supporter. And I'm proud of you. And I love what you're doing because I know you're going to reach a lot of people. And I know this is going to bless people and really, move people forward as a whole. So I just want to leave with saying, first of all, I love you more than words can explain. And I just want to say another reminder, brothers and sisters, at the time we laid down together, evidently we saw something that we felt. We saw something that we loved. So let's not disrespect one another because things don't go how we want it to.
Right.
Let's keep everything, in front of us and be adults about everything.
Well said. Well said. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.